You look through your viewfinder and you take pictures. Sounds simple, right? The viewfinder on your camera is not just an interface between you and your subject, but also a repository of important information that can help you make that shot much better. Today, we're going to go and take a guided tour of your camera's viewfinder. When you do get around to reading the manual on your camera, you might find somewhere hidden in the specs a phrase like this: Viewfinder Coverage 96.5%. This is quite an important fact to understand because it means that you're not seeing 100% of what the sensor is recording. The nearer to 100% you can get, the more accurate your viewfinder will be. This is important to understand when framing your shots. So, let's get to the information within the viewfinder itself. On the screen, you will be able to see a graphic that shows the most important elements that you may find inside your viewfinder. This is what a typical viewfinder might look like. It's a generic viewfinder, but most modern cameras will have similar information to this, but possibly with different layouts. Often the information shown can be changed. So for example, the grid might be changed to show a rule of thirds grid with 2 horizontal lines and 2 vertical. The information at the bottom may also be customized. So let's take a look in detail at this information. The rectangular boxes within the viewing area are the focus points. The actual point of focus is usually highlighted in red. If you are in the area focus mode, the camera will automatically select the focus point. If you use a single point mode, you can select any one of these boxes to be the point where you focus the camera. You should also be aware of how your camera's autofocusing system works. In this shot, the highlighted area shows us the shutter speed and aperture information. As you change either of these from the camera's controls, the numbers will change also. This is a very useful guide when, for example, you want to shoot a high shutter speed. You can rapidly change the shutter without removing the camera from your eye. This area is perhaps the most important in the viewfinder, the exposure value. If you're using any of the auto modes, the inverted triangle should be in the middle of the display, indicating the metered exposure. However, if you're using either manual modes or exposure compensation, the triangle could be either left or right of center. When shooting in manual mode, you change your shutter speed or aperture in order to bring the triangle towards the center. If you want to under or overexpose slightly, move the triangle towards the minus or plus signs respectively. Learn to see your exposure scale when you shoot. It will allow you to make informed decisions about how your final exposure should look. This is just the beginning of how to get perfect exposures. Another important piece of information is the ISO setting. It's very easy to bump up your ISO to get a low light shot, then forget to return it to a lower value when it's brighter again. Get in the habit of checking your ISO setting frequently to avoid noisy mistakes. Battery indicators are not 100% accurate, but they do give you an indication of how much power is left. Usually the indicator has 4 or 5 bars, but as a rule of thumb, once you get down to 2 bars, be prepared to change or charge your battery fairly soon. Another useful indicator is the frame counter. Get used to checking this regularly as well, but also check what your camera setting is. Some indicators show frames taken, others frames remaining. You can usually change this from your camera's menu. Be aware also when you're shooting JPEG, the frames remaining count will be an estimate only. Other useful information in the viewfinder as shown here could include whether you have an auto bracketing or flash bracketing mode on and whether the flash is on and what mode the flash is set to. There may also be indicators showing whether you have set some exposure compensation, usually indicated by a second marker in the exposure scale. There's a huge amount of useful information within the confines of your viewfinder. Learning to read the important elements about metered exposure, shutter and aperture values, and ISO can help you improve the fluidity of your image taking by allowing you to keep the camera up to your eye more often rather than dropping it down to make changes.